All right, hello everyone. Just waiting for folks to get admitted here, and then we'll get started. A few still joining, so we'll give it a minute or so, and then we'll go from there. If you want to actually pop in the chat where you're dialing in or logging in from, I'm always very curious. We even get some Americans on these calls, which is quite interesting when we're talking Canoe. But I'd love to know where everybody's dialing in from. Victoria, Tony, I'm pretty sure you're a Leafs fan, so I'm from Edmonton. It's been rough this year.
I feel like we're like the same team, Jordan, many times.
It's close but no cigar, and a lot of frustration in the first half of the year for sure.
Yeah, it's going to turn around. If anything, Team Canada is going to have a great Olympics. So I'll go with that.
I wonder if the players are waiting for that. So looks like we got most people in. Oh, we got someone even from Orlando. Wow, I'll trade you spots. So hello, everyone. Welcome to the session on empowering public sector innovation through Microsoft 365 and SharePoint Online. I'm Jordan from Cadence. We have Tony as well from Canoe. We'll do some formal introductions in a second. But we're going to tell you a little bit today about the Canoe program and how they've expanded into the IT services side of things, as well as about Cadence as one of those vendors in that program that can help you alleviate some stress in the 365 stack and get some innovation going on the public sector side of things. Just a couple of housekeeping items. Videos and mics have been turned off for everybody. It's a Teams webinar, so a little different than a standard Teams meeting. If you have questions, throw them in the chat. I have the chat on another screen here, so you see me looking away to answer anything from there. We are recording the session, and you can get a copy of the deck and the session, of course. That will be circulated from Andrea from the Cadence side of things. A bit about myself, and then I'll throw the mic to you, Tony. So I'm Jordan Uterhagen. I'm the founder and CEO of Cadence Solutions. I'll tell you a little bit about our story in a second, but I've been doing this since 2013. We're based in Edmonton, Alberta. All of our staff are based in Edmonton, Alberta as well. And we're a specialist in the Microsoft 365 content management and records management side of things. So Tony, maybe a brief introduction from you.
Yeah, thanks, Jordan. Tony DeCiccio, I'm the manager of supplier relations for Canoe. So my team oversees our supplier relationships to help foster and grow those relationships across Canada with our members. My past has been in public procurement and enjoyed doing a lot of RFPs on the technology side, but through our program, we'll talk about, hopefully we're relieving some of that burden and strain for our members to be able to work with our suppliers in a more seamless way.
Thank you, Tony. So just to run through the quick agenda, we have 30 minutes here, so we'll go through these very quickly. Canoe, and Tony specifically will talk about Canoe and the IT services program. I'll tell you a little bit about Cadence, of course, where I see 365 in the public sector usage and the different personas that utilize different components of that very, very large platform. Some municipal success stories. I think that's what you're really here for today is where have you done this before and how can we benchmark ourselves or get up to another level? How we can actually help some of our offerings, and then of course Q&A. I have Andrea monitoring the Q&A as well, so if you have anything, just throw it in the chat. We may park some to the end or bring it up live in the spot we're on. So Tony, maybe a few words on the Canoe procurement group, please.
Yeah, sure. So for those that may not be too familiar with Canoe, we are a nonprofit group purchasing organization that's been around for many years. I won't get into the whole history, but essentially we became Canoe Procurement after almost a century of doing group buying for members. And Canoe became what it is today, or what you know as today, about 5 years ago. So we represent members, in the government sector across Canada with 6,000 members nationwide, and over $1 billion in aggregated sales through the contract. So we're really excited about that. We're excited about the growth As you mentioned, Jordan, we've recently went into the IT services side of our programming, which is an exciting offering to be able to provide our members anything from that SharePoint expertise to AI governance, and all the many things in between that members are looking for through the Canoe program. So essentially, we've done that heavy lifting on the procurement side so that our members can connect with their suppliers and engage in meaningful solution development for the membership. So that's a little bit about us in a nutshell, and looking forward to the conversation and some Q&A at the end. So I'll pass it back over to you, Jordan.
Thank you, Tony. All right, I'll tell you a little bit about Cadence and how we got involved both in this industry and specifically with municipalities. With quite the story. So myself, I was working at that building on the right there, Strathcona County. For the folks not from around the Alberta area, that's just outside of Edmonton. I actually live in that county as well. And there's a whole backstory here on getting what I call hustled by a big vendor that we did go through an RFP for, Tony. Canoe was not in the IT services game then, so we went out to the RFP side of things. We brought this vendor in to implement a content management system. I was the lowest guy in the IT department at the time. And the vendor came in, big logo, couldn't really do a lot. We ended up spending $25,000 a week for 3 months, exhausted our $300,000 budget for services, flying these folks in from Ottawa. We spent $600,000 on licensing from a content management company. And we essentially had nothing that would work after 3 months. The next step in that journey was advocation to terminate the agreement with that vendor. They did not do a good job. We terminated that contract, and we actually took the project on internally ourselves. At the end of the success of that project, I thought, well, there's got to be a better way. There was nobody in at least at that time in Western Canada doing this properly. And I founded Cadence Solutions off of that. So we have a lot of values driven based on my past experience. And we're based entirely out of Edmonton. With everybody in this office, you kind of see me somewhat sitting in today. So I've been on that side of the table, and I've been on now I'm on the other side of the table on the vendor side. A bit of our track record and who we're currently working with. We're doing this since 2013. We have a ton of different project locations. We've been delivering remotely since pre-pandemic. Customers that may kind of resonate more with you, we're working with the city of Saskatoon, Richmond, Sechelt, Town of Gibson, Sunshine Coast. The Coast really likes us. It was one of our initial clients. We've worked with Fortune 500 as well. We've worked with Haynes. We've worked with this one here you may not recognize as much as is the Canadian Forces Morale and Welfare Services division in some large SharePoint work there as well. So we've covered all ends of the spectrum. Our core really is still in the municipal space. We understand the business functions really well. We understand the complexities of a municipality as you go to roll out a very large project around Microsoft 365. A bit around our partnership side of things. So we're in 3 major partnerships with Microsoft. The first one is what's called the Risk Compliance and Advisory Partnership. We're one of 24 partners globally that were invited into that program by Microsoft. That's not one way you can train your way into or certify your way into. You actually have to prove that you've done good work in the risk compliance and, of course, the advisory side of things. We're also a modern work partner. Modern work, for those folks that don't know, that's anything around the online collaboration or using cloud services in your organization. So SharePoint, Teams, Copilot now. We're one of the founding partners in the Content AI Partner Program from Microsoft, which was kind of put together covertly about 3 to 4 years ago, where they'd invite these partners down to campus in Seattle, go through a bunch of new features that are upcoming in the next couple of years, make you sign a non-disclosure agreement, and you give your feedback on those. So we're in those 3 partner programs, and we still participate in those all the time. A bit around what the public sector is kind of utilizing 365 for. So 365 is this absolute monstrosity of a system, and it just continues to grow as more of these microservices or software pieces are put onto the larger ecosystem. And that's good from a functional perspective. It's painful in terms of a licensing renewal perspective and a deployment perspective, where you're constantly kind of chasing your own tail trying to get things rolled out. And I've presented this slide many times, and it resonates with a lot of folks because we go through the personas. So if I'm in the information governance side of things, I might be working in the legal department, I might be working in the records department, if you have a risk department. I'm only concerned with some of the platform. I'm not going to be concerned with Viva. I'm not going to be concerned with Fabric. I'm really going to be concerned with these two up here, and I'll just bring out the laser to highlight it a little better. Purview and Priva. So Priva is the privacy side of things. And Purview is, of course, the governance piece that really overarches everything. You can see the legacy logo there, which was an eyeball. Very appropriate, but they did change that logo in terms of it does see everything. If I'm an IT system administrator, sorry, also if I'm a InfoGov person, I'm focused on SharePoint, I'm focused on Teams, I'm focused on OneDrive, and if my organization is far enough ahead, I'm probably focused on Copilot as well. I'm concerned with where my content is going. I'm concerned with how it is shared. I'm concerned if I can go perform any discovery on that content or fulfill a public records request or a freedom of information request. And that's the balance that I'm going to play in my job day to day. If I'm an IT administrator, I'm going to focus on, I'm not going to highlight everything on the platform, but I'm going to focus on these specific things. I'm going to focus on security up here in the top left, Intune, Defender, Sentinel, Entra, Preview, Priva, and Purview. In addition to the collaborative suite, emails done through Exchange, OneDrive, of course, Copilot Syntax if you're using it, which is similar to kind of Kofax if you're familiar with that, form capture and automation. And the big behemoth, of course, is Copilot that sits in between all of this and can or cannot have access based on your configuration to use these repositories as information sources to feed that up to an end user. So if I'm an IT admin, I'm focused on a broader perspective, but a lot deeper in terms of the security side of things. If I'm an end user, I'm really only going to play with two things. I'm going to be in the app side of things. I'm going to use my Office suite. I might go out there and use bookings or stream if I'm doing, the calendar-like bookings or the YouTube-like video storage internally. And I'm going to work within the collaborative suite. I'm going to save my documents to SharePoint. I'm going to bug everybody all day on Teams and send files. I'm going to use OneDrive for content. And if I do have a license, I might get to play with Copilot or maybe Syntax if I'm fortunate. So those are kind of the three areas that the end users play in addition to the InfoGov people and the system administrators. So the question we get a lot from municipalities is, and the journey before I get into this is, the pandemic hit, we bought Teams, we bought a bunch of licenses with it, generally an E3 or an E5 from Microsoft. This stuff's been kind of idling because we really needed to use Teams right away, but we didn't really expand in amongst the rest of the platform. So where do I actually start and why do I start with this in 365? Well, you already own the technology. Almost every municipality has it. You're using it, likely to dial into this call today on Teams. You're probably not leveraging the full suite of products inside of it, and you're paying for redundant tools. We see a lot of legacy ECM repositories moved into SharePoint. We see a lot of past reporting tools that may be taken over by Power BI now. Just different ways of getting more out of what you're already paying for. The second piece is the built-in security and compliance. So inside of Purview, there's data loss prevention, there's e-discovery, and those are included in what you have today. And those should be used to meet your FOIP, your privacy, and your retention requirements without having to go procure other software, without having to go out to RFP again, or you're really just looking for a service provider to leverage what you have, and you can do that in combination with Cadence and Canoe. The third piece, and this is the buzz all across the world for the last 2 years, right, is AI. Microsoft had their Ignite major conference last week, and that was the term that was thrown around for every keynote and every session. Copilot can transform how you work, but in order to get there, you need to have your ducks in a row from a security and compliance side of things so the AI engine doesn't see things that it shouldn't on your behalf. The positive is that is already in something that you're likely utilizing. You may just need to look at obtaining an AI license through Copilot. The fourth one is modern collaboration. Going through the collaborative side of SharePoint Online and Teams has really changed document management. And my background has been in doc management and content management for close to 20 years. The fact that we can simply do little things like co-authoring inside of SharePoint is a big boost in productivity. That is true collaboration. I don't need to check out to one person, check in, and then check out to the next person to make a version 2 of the same document. Teams let you do that linking and everything with a document that you're working on in flight. And you can save it to SharePoint or OneDrive, wherever you like, while it's being worked on. And the fifth one is really cost. Reduce spend on third party. Activate the features you already own. We get a lot of phone calls, a lot of meetings on, I have E5, I have the King license, but I'm not using so much of it. So how do I start utilizing more of what I already own, more of SharePoint? How do I downshift and sunset legacy systems and just move that content into one platform? I want it all in 365 because I'm already paying for it and it is the leader in a lot of spaces. So a bit around the success side of things, where have we done this before? So one of our major clients right now, we're implementing and migrating in. So we're implementing SharePoint and we're migrating in legacy content. They had an open text system of the past. I did a lot of work in open text, know it very well, as the team does here at Cadence as well. And they wanted to move the legacy repositories into the modern collaborative system of SharePoint Online. We implemented SharePoint Online. We wanted it as that single source of truth. Migrated data from OpenText, from the shared drives, from even that legacy on-premise SharePoint. So if you have SharePoint 07, 2010, 2013, 2016, get that stuff out of there. That's all off maintenance, and it's time to move that into SharePoint Online. And that's where Microsoft wants you to go to. We can apply retention schedules and governance tools. So we actually want to purge that content when the time's right and when you're allowed to. And we deliver train the training. So we generally, as a vendor, we don't want to be the face ongoing in the organization. We don't want to be sticky, and that's intentional. We're happy to help, but there is a point where that does have to transition internally. And we want that to occur naturally throughout the project. We consolidated those systems into 365 for this municipality. We improved the compliance posture and reduced the operational costs, which was a big one. They're actually able to sunset OpenText and recoup the maintenance costs they were paying annually, which can be north of 6 figures. And then they were empowered with scalable and governed collaboration. They did, you have to go through the change management activity with your user base, but once they're there, it's pretty natural now to go and learn things like co-authoring or saving something to an online repository. 10 years ago, definitely a lot more difficult to do that, but a lot more simple now. That's one of the successes that we've had. A second one, and a client really close to our heart. This was actually our very first client 12 years ago. Was the Sunshine Coast Regional District. So Sunshine Coast was originally on OpenText, and we put them on OpenText back in 2013, 2014. They called us up a few years back and said, the time is now. We're ready to sunset that system based on costs and Microsoft kind of catching up in terms of functionality. And we're ready to move that all into SharePoint. So we went back to Sunshine Coast happily, started to migrate content straight out of OpenText and into SharePoint. Set up the governance side of things, so the records management, the information architecture for your users, so different sites, different document libraries, the metadata associated with that, and started to put that in place for them and really accelerated their adoption of SharePoint and continued to ensure they had the scalable governance and compliance, which they did in the past, and really positioned them for long-term success. This was a project just before one of the folks was going to retire, so it was very important to her that this was completed as kind of her a gift of retirement, I guess, back to the municipality in terms of this is complete. For the folks not from British Columbia, Regional District is a very complex municipality. It will be multiple municipalities in amongst the district. So it is a bit of a challenge to navigate the rollout and the timing and the change management because you're dealing with like different organizations all rolled into one. One of the other ones we're working on is we're modernizing an ECM platform and consolidating repositories for another major municipality. And if you're good with, the geo-guessing, you can see from the pictures who these are, but I did want to anonymize it a little bit today. They were moving out of OnBase. They're moving that content into SharePoint. If you're not familiar with OnBase, it's a product from Highland. It was big in the content management side of things during the 2010 to 2020 era. There's kind of a whole set there of Laserfish, OpenText, Highland OnBase, Alfresco, FileNet. The old guard of content management is now being transitioned into SharePoint Online. We leverage one of our own tools to perform this project that we call Peregrine. If you're a bird person, Peregrine Falcon is the fastest bird. Our tool is built based on that concept. We migrated 15 terabytes of data in, enabled that client to actually adopt 365, and this one's actually done under the Canoe program as well. So this is a Canoe success between Cadence and Canoe for this municipality. They did not need to go to RFP. Canoe had done that on their behalf as a group purchasing org for anything SharePoint services related. So a bit around how we can help. So I mentioned we do have a migration tool. If you're interested in learning more, we'll circulate the deck. It's also here in the QR code, but generally it takes content from the legacy platforms and moves that into SharePoint Online, or if you're going to one of these platforms, it can migrate it into there. So a data migration tool. It was built after testing many tools that just didn't quite meet our requirements when we were delivering a project. So this is a tool that we even use as a part of our delivery, but one that is available for you to self-build as well, or self-migrate. A second one that we have here under the Peregrine platform is Classify. So classification is one of the core components of getting into a new system. And the classification uses machine learning and large language models to identify your content, classify it as per a document type, and then prepare that for migration into the system. So it's a precursor to actually doing the migration. I want to remove my duplicates. I want to know what content I actually have. I want to tag and label that content, and I'd like to migrate that to the appropriate place. And that's one of the offerings we have as a part of our standard rollout, in addition to doing this as a separate project. We have one client right now that uses this after a merger and acquisition. Of course, they're not in the public sector, but they wanted to go find the crown jewels of information after acquiring the company and acquiring and owning all that data. They wanted to go find specific pieces of data, train the system on those specific document types, send Peregrine Classify out there to find that information and tag it, and then prepare that information and documentation for migration. Third component that we do, honestly, almost every week now is Microsoft 365 training. This has been wildly popular for the last couple of years. We've expanded it to offer training for data governance for Copilot, for Teams information governance, and we continue to offer data loss prevention, e-discovery, and records management under the Purview banner. So if you're interested in training, it's hands-on in a lab with a real person. This is not death by slide deck training. We've been through that. I didn't like it. We developed this training with our customers, and we've been delivering this as a valid and credentialed partner through ARMA and AIM, two of the leading organizations and the professional associations in information and records management. A few other services that we do offer, we do file share cleanup. We can do that as either supplying Peregrine Classify or performing that on your behalf. We do the auto classification for records management as well, or the seeking of things that aren't in the 365 stack. If they're in there, we have other methods of that. But if they're outside of SharePoint, they're outside of Teams or outside of OneDrive, we have ways of classifying that content. We roll out SharePoint and Purview day in and day out. We have many active projects in that space right now. The focus is on data protection, security, and compliance. We stay within that wheelhouse. And we go through e-discovery and risk reduction strategies all the time. So as someone that's worked in the municipal space, I understand that the freedom of information requests are only increasing. The time to get those turned around is not very forgiving. And we have strategies and methods to utilize what you have in 365 to extract that information. In addition to that, if you're working on internal risk reduction, so insider risk, custodians as we call them, so putting email inboxes on hold, we have ways of assisting in that space as well. I'd like to open it up to any questions. We got 5 or 6 minutes left. I did not want to run over on this. Nobody wants to be kept over time for Jordan babbling in a webinar, but I'll open it up to any questions. And if you want, you can just throw them right in the chat and I'll monitor that. I'll put this slide up while we're waiting if there are any questions. My contact information is here. Tony, your contact information is there. I'm all over LinkedIn as well, so if you want to follow or find me on LinkedIn, I'm happy to connect. We post a lot of educational stuff. It's not salesy stuff. that are coming in the 365 side of things. Our next webinars with Canoe, and we've been a big part of the online presence. So Tony, I didn't put your personal phone number on there. I'm happy to do that if you like, but
no, that
reach out
works
to you
for
as
me,
well.
Jordan. Yeah, anybody can reach out to me anytime. And if they go to canoeprocurement.ca as well, we're an easy group to get a hold of. So no, that works. And I do see a question here, Jordan. I don't know if you saw the Q&A. Does Canoe provide group purchasing services for M365 solutions? So I could try to take a run at that, John, for you. We do group purchasing services for multiple different programs, from IT services to commodities like construction equipment and furniture and all kinds of things. So under our IT services program, we do have multiple different types of services that are available to you. So I would always recommend take a look at what we have on canoeprocurement.ca, and if you have questions, by all means reach out and we can get you connected to the right person on our team to help you out a little bit more.
Looks like John's happy, Tony.
All right, perfect.
Well done.
Thanks, John. And Jordan, while we have a couple minutes, I always because I'm not a techie person, right? Like I know enough to get me through my emails in a day, but I really appreciate the information you're sharing here, because I think being on that public service side, there's just so much that a public servant has to deal with in a day, just from your days. So this was great information. I always learn a little bit more every time I chat with you or the team at Cadence, so I appreciate it.
Excellent. Yeah, I've been on the other side. You don't want to be told, here, you have to use this thing, and we're not going to teach you how to use it. That's the worst part of being on the other side of IT most of the time. But it was good to have the session today, Tony. I think we'll leave it there. I don't see any more questions coming in the chat, and we'll circulate the recording and the slide deck shortly.
Perfect.
Excellent. Thanks for
Thanks,
joining,
everyone.
everyone. We'll chat soon.
Have a great day.